Hello, and in today's episode of our watchmaking adventure, we're heading off to La Chaux-de-Fonds, a very important town in terms of watchmaking history, a town and region home to the first steps of industrial watchmaking back in the 19th century. A town totally structured around this watchmaking activity, and this can be felt with its very urbanistic features, using a grid format with large streets so that buildings would not create shadow on one another at a time when you simply couldn't flip a switch to light your workshops, and therefore buildings are all facing south for maximum sunlight. But this went even further, as the social mix was also heavily taken into consideration, and all different strata of the society were meant to mingle, from workers to company owners, and this had an influence on both the economical, cultural and social development of what was considered as a factory city, and actually even influenced thinkers such as Karl Marx himself, but also one of the most famous native of La Chaux-de-Fonds, world-renowned architect Le Corbusier. So our day actually started by visiting a very iconic building called La Villa Turque, designed by Le Corbusier in the years 1910s. This building is now the property of the Movado Group, owner of Movado, of course, but also Ebel, a brand that was really the super hypest brand of the 80s, kind of the Hublot of its time, and they used a really nice claim which was Ebel, Architects of Time. And walking through this building for sure explained how and why they were inspired. But now it's time to go back to some serious watchmaking visit and dive into Girard-Perregaux, one of the oldest Swiss watch brands still in existence, and meet Willy Schweitzer, a man that knows a thing or two regarding GP and La Chaux-de-Fonds in general.
So La Chaux-de-Fonds is considered as the heart of Swiss watchmaking. It's a city that exists since the 16th century, and since the 17th century, the end of the 17th century, we have been making watchmaking here in La Chaux-de-Fonds. Up to a point that at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th, La Chaux-de-Fonds used to produce half the watches of the world. La Chaux-de-Fonds only. So it was very important, and still it's very important.
La Chaux-de-Fonds is so historied. The city itself, the way that it's oriented, the way that it's structured so that the majority of the buildings face the sunlight, so that historically they would have more natural light to perform their watchmaking duties. Like, to get an understanding of both the history of Girard-Perregaux and the cultural context of watchmaking in La Chaux-de-Fonds. This was, I think, the best part of that trip. That was one phenomenal aspect of it, to understand from a cultural standpoint and a watchmaking standpoint the connection.
First, here we are producing the specific tools that we are going to use to produce the watches. So this is produced with classic machines, means that type of machine, and in the old days, one machine, one man, one operation for the current production, but also very important for the restoration of old watches. These machines can work alone, like the two here, or they can be linked together with a rail. So it means that if you look at the machine closer, you have one robot and 28 different tools that the machine can change automatically according to the work it has to do. We adjust the machine at 1/10,000 of a millimeter in order to get a precision of 1,000 by the tool. So if you take the case, so imagine that you start from a block, which is put on the scissor here, and then you have the different tools that will work on it. Engine turning, so it works as a lathe, milling, drilling, and it can, as you can see, start the polishing also. Still now we have to make the housing of the glass. That's the last operation to do, but the rest is done already, including the holes, including the drills, and the threads of the screws. Everything is done. This is a plain made plate, so practically you start from once again the metal, and then you get the main plate. But the machines are powerful enough now also to start skeletonizing. Still 10 years ago was impossible to get without a saw manually. But now, if we have that, All the operations will be manual, especially the chamfering and the finishing of the part. We're going to see this afterwards. So you have here 48 different tools and the machine changes them automatically, which work in 3 axes, X, Y, Z. And then you have the table there, which holds the part. So this is how we can make the shape, which is another shape than just a plate, like what we have seen here. So you start with a small ingot like this, and then finally you get your bridge, but which is raw. Then once again, once you have the part, then the manual work starts. And the most useful instrument for finishing the complicated watches is this. High-tech, eh? This is a stone file. We are going to use this stone file for the beveling, anglage, and for rounding off, for instance, the arms of the bridges of the tourbillon. Then we are going to use 2 types of wood, a hardwood, which is boxwood. In combination with this wood, like you see it with Claudia, we use a diamond paste. And you see that there are different colors. And then the very soft wood for the finishing.
I think the constant force escapement is just about the coolest thing that I saw this trip.
Yeah, the constant force escapement was just like phenomenal, right? Like to be able to see that and see it functioning, not just in a video, but to actually hold it in your hand and try it on the wrist. You know, it was incredible.
What I do is to house in the escapement an accumulator of energy. So it's put into tension with 2 little arms on the wire that you see in the middle, here and here. And then he received the energy as usual from the 2 barrels to the gear train, and then it comes to the escapement. And inside the escapement, you can see it with the loop here, you have this element that waits until it gets sufficient energy to flip and to give its energy perfectly regularly to the balance wheel and spring. So normally you take a plate, you remove material and you get the part. Here you start from nothing and actually you build up, you increase the material until you get it. So the procedure for assembling a complicated watch is a bit complicated. Means that there are so many parts to put together that the watchmakers will first make what we call a blank assembling, as they have to manipulate several times all the components. They will not take care of how clean it is, but adjust everything properly. Tune the sound for the repeater, of course, because you have to do this. And once everything is perfectly okay, they disassemble the movement, they clean everything, and they reassemble clean. And of course, you must pay attention to one thing. The parts come perfect from the decoration workshop, must remain perfect. No scratch, nothing. Our role is precisely to make things like these. Why are we still here? Because our philosophy is to make that kind of timepieces. You have to house as much as possible emotion into this volume to entertain finally. And so people have pleasure in wearing, pleasure in seeing, and in sharing and so on. But finally we do exactly like our ancestors, but we only have now one expression left, which is the wristwatch.
I love the Neo Bridge they have. I guess they launched like a few years ago. Because I saw some few pieces in my shop, and it's amazing. You know, they kind of like have contemporary design, and then also they like fuse their traditional, like the bridge inside the watches, and a more affordable price. Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Next episode, we'll visit Ulysse Nardin. Till then, all the very best to you and see you real soon.